So what does the Bible say about homosexuality?
Who cares? Oh wait, that would make for a shitty video. Let me expand on that thought. It doesn't say a whole lot, but even when it is mentioned, scholars have a hard time figuring out what it all means. Take Leviticus 18:22, which is often cited by anti-gay Christians. It would seem that this verse is pretty cut and dry, but some Christians will say that if you look at the verse before this one, you'll find a warning about sacrificing your children to the god Molech. It is thought that the temples of Molech often contain prostitutes, and some people will argue that the following verse is telling the Israelites not to engage in homosexual acts with the prostitutes of Molech, because this might make the god and his followers stronger. Anyways. Others might try to massage the text by looking at the second part of that verse, and arguing that homosexuality in this context isn't a moral sin, but a ceremonial uncleanliness. For example, the second part of this verse explains what type of sin this transgression falls under. There are two types of sin in the Mosaic Code. Moral sin is produced by rebellion against God. This seems to be the interpretation of most biblical translations imply when they translate the Hebrew toivah in this verse into English words such as abomination, enormous sin, or detestable. Ceremonial uncleanliness is caused by contact with a forbidden object, or by engaging in behavior which might be quite acceptable to non-Hebrews, but which was forbidden to the children of Israel. Eating birds of prey, eating shellfish, crossbreeding livestock, picking up sticks on Saturday, planting a mixture of seeds in a field, and wearing clothing that is a blend of two textiles are examples of acts of ritual impurity which made a child of Israel unclean. These were not necessarily minor sins. Some called for the ancient Israelite to be executed or expelled from the tribe. Religious conservatives and Bible translators tend to interpret this transgression as a moral sin. The King James Bible is typical. It calls sex between two men to be an abomination. However, others interpret it as a ceremonial uncleanliness, as an impurity, ritual impurity, or act that results in ceremonial uncleanliness. But regardless, I'm not sure why it matters. The Bible isn't a reliable source of ethical teachings. It routinely misses the mark and often advises that we do things that would be against the modern ethical standards most people would say they adhere to today. Even most Christians, thankfully, ignore what their Bibles say and cherry-pick the bits they think are good.
Compared to what the myth of evolution says about homosexuality.
This should be good.
The Bible, you probably already know this, people have probably told you that the Bible teaches that homosexuality is a sin.
Yeah, we've already gone over this. It would be nice to know which verses you're talking about so that we could look at each of them. But since you've decided to be vague, the Bible also tells you that shaving, eating meat with blood still in it, and tattoos are bad as well. Judging by your shaven face, it looks like you broke one of those rules right before you filmed this video. If you eat rare steak, you broke another. But since you do those things, ignoring those rules just makes sense, right? Better to focus on the arbitrary rules that other people might be breaking.
You've probably heard this before from people, whether you believe it or not. Okay, but
I believe it. I believe that's what your ancient book says, and I believe that the people who wrote it likely believed that what they were writing was helpful. However, I don't believe these rules were handed down by an immaterial supernatural god. I also don't believe we should be blindly following these rules today.
everybody's a sinner.
Thanks for that bit of wisdom, Joshua. That was profound.
Romans 3:23 says, "For all have sinned and come short of the glory of God." For all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. So we're all sinners.
Not sure what this has to do with homosexuality or the conversation at hand. You seem to think that pointing out we all do things that go against what your God commanded is somehow a relevant point. It's not. How about you just get on with what you want to say?
But there is redemption. God can forgive you, and you can be saved.
Oh, I see. That's why you thought the whole everyone is a sinner part was relevant. You think homosexuals are committing a sin. Gotcha.
If evolution is true, what does evolution say about the homosexual?
Evolution doesn't say anything about the homosexual. The American evolutionary biologist Douglas Fatima defined evolution this way. In the broadest sense, evolution is merely change, and so is all-pervasive. Galaxies, languages, and political systems all evolve. Biological evolution is change in the properties of populations of organisms that transcend the lifetime of a single individual. The ontogeny of an individual is not considered evolution. Individual organisms do not evolve. The changes in populations that are considered evolutionary are those that are inheritable via the genetic material from one generation to the next. Biological evolution may be slight or substantial. It embraces everything from slight changes in the proportion of different alleles within a population, such as those determining blood types, to the successive alterations that led from the earliest proto-organism to snails, bees, giraffes, and dandelions. The theory of evolution isn't a guidebook on how to act ethically. It's a scientific theory that is backed by mountains of evidence.
Think about it. Really be honest with yourself and think about it. If evolution is true, 2 men or 2 women together cannot produce children. So what does evolution teach about people like that?
Again, evolution doesn't teach anything about, quote, people like that. And lots of heterosexual couples struggle or are unable to produce offspring. In fact, studies suggest that after 1 year of having unprotected sex, 15% of couples are unable to conceive, and after 2 years, 10% of couples still have not had a successful pregnancy. Are they useless human beings? Are they sinners according to your God? Producing children isn't the only reason we have intercourse. For example, sex helps us bond emotionally with our spouse.
Well, they have a lifestyle that tends towards death, non-reproduction. You can't reproduce yourself. So, according to evolution, what does it say about you? If evolution is true, then there's something wrong with you because you're not reproducing.
No. In fact, homosexual behavior has been documented in over 450 different animal species worldwide. But how could this be, your Bible-addled mind might ask? Here's an example of why so many species might exhibit homosexual behavior. Biologists Nathan W. Bailey and Marlene Zook from the University of California, Riverside, have investigated the evolutionary consequences and implications of same-sex behavior, and their findings demonstrate benefits to what seems to be an evolutionary paradox. For example, the studies of the Laysan albatross show that female-female pairing can increase fitness by taking advantage of the excess of females and shortage of males in the population, and provide superior care for offspring. Moreover, the same-sex pairing in many species actually alleviates the likelihood of divorce and curtails the pressure on the opposite sex by allowing members to exhibit more flexibility to form partnerships, which in turn strengthens social bonds and reduces competition. Thus, not only do animals exhibit homosexuality, but the existence of this behavior is quite prevalent and may also confer certain evolutionary advantages. I'll leave links in the description box if you'd like to learn more about the possible evolutionary advantages of homosexuality.
And their attitude, and this is not my attitude, this is the attitude of, if a person who believes in evolution would be honest with you.
No, not your attitude. Your attitude seems to be that an ancient, superstition-riddled book of myths can be interpreted to mean homosexuality is a sin, so therefore it must be true. No need to look into it any further. No need to question that assumption.
They're going to say, well, you tend towards death, you can't reproduce. They're going to say you're a drag on society. You use food, objects, and you don't create life. You don't tend towards life.
No. I believe in evolution, and I wouldn't say any of those things. I'd say it's none of my fucking business if 2 consenting adults of the same sex decide to have sex or love one another. I would say good for them. Be happy. It's hard to find love, and if they've successfully done so with someone of the same sex, good for them. The human race isn't having a problem reproducing.
So if anything, they would have a tendency to hate you.
Wow. Just wow. Look at those wheels turn. What a huge leap you just made.
Maybe most evolutionists don't think this out. Probably most atheists won't tell you about this, but think about it. I mean, that's...
Yeah, it's an atheist conspiracy. You can also be an atheist and not believe in evolution, Joshua. But don't let facts get in your way.
You know, evolution teaches that certain animals can't produce or can't survive for whatever reason. They're not quite strong enough, they don't survive, and they die out, and they're gone. So, who has a more respectful view, really, if you think about it? Who has a more respectful view of you? The myth of evolution or God?
Well, if you're still talking about your particular God, I'd say it doesn't have a very respectful view of homosexuals or humanity in general. It didn't have a problem drowning every human on Earth, including infants, because it was displeased. It didn't hesitate to kill the firstborn sons of the Egyptians, even though they and their parents had nothing to do with the Pharaoh's decision not to let the Israelites go. It doesn't seem to have a problem calling all of us broken sinners in need of a human sacrifice to be forgiven. Yeah, I'm going to say that your Bible often doesn't present a very respectful view of humanity. Anyhow, that's it for this video. Thank you for watching. Take care and cheers.
Hello. If you're watching this video, it could be that you found it on your own, or it could be that someone sent to you because they care enough that they want you to hear about the gospel.